Well, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Having my morning coffee. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but got some rain in the background. Makes it very cozy out here, at 3 a.m. Well, everybody, hopefully you're enjoying Labor Day. For those in the U.S., here is not a national holiday here because we're in a different country. But they do have a Labor Day. I forgot when it is. I don't know if we've already passed Labor Day or not. I can't keep up with things here, just to be honest with you. But I was thinking about Labor Day. In my early years, I was working a non-union job. I was still wet behind the ears, as they say. But, I knew how to do things, a lot of things. At that time, I was mechanically inclined. I could weld. I could do just about anything, run a piece of equipment, loaders, dozers, whatever, So it wasn't hard to acquire a job, especially, that was a beginning of what they called the coal boom in my part of the country, in the Appalachians. And I got a job. Like I said, it was new. It was my first permanent job, real job. I had worked at different things, even in coal fields. That's how I knew how to run a lot of equipment. Gym whack around, whatever they want to call it. So we'll work for a day and they pay you in at the table $10 and you go on about your business. That wasn't uncommon. But I got me a real job. Making $3 an hour. Woo-hoo. Fantastic. Well, my $3 an hour, we had to practically rebuild this, what you call a prep plant or loadout, where we load railroad cars. So a lot of welding required, which I did. Electrical work, so forth. And build a ramp up to where we dump the coal. Instead of using a loader to dump it, they actually back the truck and rebuild what they call the hopper, and to rebuild it. So once we got everything up and going, I was working on the average from 6 a.m. to 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes longer. It depended if we got extra railroad cars or not. What I mean by that, they pull the loaded ones out and bring us some empty ones back. So yeah, you can do the math, that's 12, 14, 16-hour days. Now, that sounded great, didn't it? $3 an hour. So, if you figure it out, we worked basically 7 days a week most of the time. So very little time left over. So at 7 times a week, say if we've done 10 hours a day, that's 70 hours, right? Plus the overtime. They give me 30 hours overtime. That's $4.50 an hour. I'm making the big bucks. Well, it just so happened my boss happened to be a relative. They just assumed that we just make it easy. This is 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 70 hours, right? What if I told you he was going to turn in 45, 48 hours? And I'd quit asking him about it. I said, we'll catch it on slow days when things slow down. That way I can make sure you got hours. I said, that don't make sense. I said, I lose my overtime. He said, it didn't work out. Don't worry about it. Well, anyway, I wet behind the ears, so I worked. And every week, that's what I had to put up with. Actually, every 2 weeks. And I lose out on, as you can do the math, 20, 25 hours each week, 50 hours every 2 weeks. I lose. It's sad that a relative would do someone that way, but that's what I was up against. I worked that job until I acquired another job. I jumped from, well, of course, during that time, I did get a raise. I was up to $4 an hour. Then I got lucky and found another job working on a strip job. That's where we removed the surface and down to the coal seam, and the guy, his operation, he knew me. So went up there to originally do just maintenance work. Get away from running any equipment or anything like that. Just I wanted to be a grease monkey. And that paid $8 an hour. I was getting double paid. And it was getting 11 hours a day and getting paid for every hour. I was happy. Just so happened he come on the job and he seen who it was, and he said, well, we got to stick him on a piece of equipment. That was a $2 raise. Stuck me on a loader. And I was happy. I'm making good money. I'm making $10 an hour. And $10 an hour in the 70s is big money. Saving money, had reasonable transportation. Then the operation, he decided for, I don't know if it's financial or whatever, he's going to shut it down. So there I was, looking for a job. In the meantime, I wanted to take a little break. I just needed something to keep me from dipping into my savings. So I started working at a little local car dealership. I worked there a few months. The pay wasn't just barely enough to buy you food and transportation back and forth. Wasn't much. But the hours were good. It was 8 hour a day. Even then, they paid the grease monkey $5 an hour. That was pretty decent. And finally, there's new mines that went in. It'd been there a year or so, something like that. It's still new. So I went over and applied for a job. And it just so happened the evening foreman was there in the office when I was there. He looked at me and said, what are you here for? And I said, I can oversee if I can find a job. He said, just fill out the application, you can come to work tomorrow. I said, wow. He said, yeah, no problem. So, I said, what time are you coming? He said, well, you're going to be working with me. It'll be evening shift. That's fantastic. And guess what? The pay was great. I think it was $11.15 or something like that. An odd number to it. Plus, he had medical benefits and health benefits and a retirement plan. All these wonderful things. I had me a real union job. I was happy. I finally hit, in my eyes, the mother lode. So I show up to work, and the first thing they did was put me on general labor, and I was happy. That was a great job. Got to do something every evening, different. So I could go in and do a belt cleanup, whatever. Work outside, run a little loader, one evening, or whatever. Just what they call a shaker building, where they separate the rock from the coal and debris, whatever else comes in. That was a high job. Then all of a sudden, they wanted me to work on a section. I said, okay. They said, you're going to be the float out man. So the float out man is a person that does the job of everyone who's not showing up for work. The miner operator, the boulder operator, the scoop operator, so forth. The buggy operators. I said, well, that's not so bad. I don't mind being a float out guy. Well, the nice part about that is I got to operate the miner. They got enough hours in, which qualify me for what they call miner pay. That was a $3 on the hour increase. Ooh. Nice. And plus, on a side note, I was getting a double back a lot too. So I get a lot of 16-hour shifts in. I average at least 3 a week. So I'm making good money, and I'm putting some money in the bank. Well, the section I was working on was the main section for the main drive belt. So after we drive up so far, that the main drive, which is a huge belt line, can't remember the exact size of it. But anyway, we had to take the top out so all the structure would fit. Well, on that heading, we always use conventional bolts. What I mean by conventional bolts is when you bolt the top. They actually are a screw bolt with a flange that spreads open when you fit it in the hole. So you drill a hole in the roof, and you put that bolt in, and you tighten it up with a piece of metal plate and normally a wood board, as they call a half header. And it helps hold the top from falling. Now the rest of the drive, we use what they call resin bolts. You drill a hole, you put the plate in the cap board on, or whatever you want to call it, the header, and you spun that bolt around, mix the glue, and they just lock up in place. Those held the top extremely well. And we had shell top. The reason I told you all this is because I'm getting ready to tell you about the little accident. Now, we have driven up far enough that where it's time we're going to have to bring the belt line forward. So we go back and we start taking those conventional bolts out. Now we know how far we're going to move the heading. So what we do, we go as far forward as we're going to go, and then we start removing the bolts and moving back. So the loose top is in front of you, and you keep moving back. Then we get back to where we need to be. Then we bring in the miner and we cut the top out, and so it'd be high enough for the equipment to go in when we make the belt move. Now I'm pulling these bolts out. I had a section of top just break loose, and it whacked me across the back. I mean, it was lights out. That's the last time I seen the face of the mine. I never get to go back down. That was a shaft mine, by the way. We're 200 and some feet down. At that time, I think about 3 or 4 miles back. But I never got to return. Spent some time in the hospital. Had experimental surgery. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. My time off work, I had to dip into my savings to live. And I couldn't get a real job anymore. And once I got before I could get around on my feet. And I wasn't about to sign up on disability and stuff like that, like everybody wanted me to. I'm 25-year-old. I was a young man. I'm still full of spit and fire. I said, you know, look what people would think of me if I get on what they call the draw. Dude, that'd be terrible. So from that point on, I was stuck with mediocre jobs, no benefits. That's my story. Now that's part one, as I would call it. I brought this up because it's Labor Day. I figured it's a good time to talk about some job history. And let y'all know how my beginning worked. Prior to those jobs, as being under 18, I had to work most of that work with very few paid taxes. Some of it did, which was great. When I was 12-year-old, I was working at the local body shop and school projects and one thing or another, and actually paid into Social Security. And did that for several years. Some of those jobs actually paid. Because, they could legally hire me for so many hours a week. And I'd done my best to work those hours. Unknowingly that I was actually paying into Social Security. I didn't even think about it then. Excuse me. But since this is Labor Day for most of you, I thought I'd entertain you with a little job history. And folks, everybody out there, I wish you the best. And hopefully everything in front of you gets even better. And one thing I'd like for you to do is don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.